is Law and Alternative Sexualities. And this week we have the topic that we are going to focus on, that is medicalization, socio-medical medicine and homosexuality. So we have three different speakers who are professional, who are working in this particular area, in this particular field. And every day, like today, tomorrow, and day after, from three different professional who are experts in their this particular field will be addressing on a different topic. And you will also you are all open to discuss, to ask questions related to the topic that they are bringing at this platform. And like always, as I say, that we encourage exchange of information, knowledge, and interactive session every time. And after the presentation, PowerPoint presentation by the speaker, the we are open for the question answer session, or if you have any query, or if you want to add any information or your experience, you are most welcome. So without any much delay, I'll hand over to Shivani Jadhav ma'am, who is the program coordinator, to introduce our today's guest. Over to you, Shivani.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all, and welcome to the 10th session of the certificate course in Law and Alternate Sexualities. Today, we have with us Sylvester Mechant. They will be addressing us on the topic medicalization of homosexuality. Sylvie, as they like to be addressed, are a transgender activist working on health and human rights of LGBT plus community since 22 years, and based out of Gujarat, India. Sylvie is the first person to come out openly as a trans activist in the state of Gujarat to various local and national print and virtual media. And they still continue to do so by positively communicating with the masses on issues of sexual and gender minorities. Their work includes collectivization of sexual and gender minority communities, development of new community based organizations, advocacy on legal and social issues of gay, bisexual, and transgender populations. They have conceived, conceptualized, and formulated Lakshya Trust, which is the first community-based organization for sexual minorities in the state of Gujarat. Sylvie has sensitized and advocated with various stakeholders, including government and corporate and social sector organizations on LGBT plus issues. Sylvie has managed state, national, and regional level HIV projects centered around gay, bisexual men, and transgender community. Through the Trust, Sylvie runs a transgender rescue and shelter home in Gujarat, apart from other projects focusing on LGBTQ plus communities. Sylvie, we are deeply honored to have your presence among us virtually today. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Uh, I would kind of let me first, apologize because I was supposed to be joining from my laptop, but I suppose there is some issue with the technology part of it. So I've kind of managed with my mobile phone. So what also would also happen that since it's a mobile phone, I would not be able to kind of hold it all the times till 2:30, means from 2:30 to 4:30. So please excuse me if I kind of off my camera while I start presenting also. It's just a small and humble request. Also, before starting, specifically when we talk about medicalization of homosexuality, uh, this the whole subject basically is from a very, very community perspective, which I'm kind of bringing in. Of course, there are there are findings and there are researches which I would be also quoting as we go through the presentation. But very importantly, it is a community perspective of how things evolved when we talk about medicine and same-sex relationships. So with that, can we go to the second slide, please? I'm just turning off my camera now, but yes, I will on it when we start a discussion as well. Not a problem with that. Yeah, thank you. Can we go to the second? Yeah, depathologizing. Yeah. So here, uh, uh, so here when we talk about uh, removal of homosexuality as a disorder, especially when this is in the year 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removed removed the diagnosis of homosexuality from the second edition of its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is DSM. And this resulted after comparing competing theories, that those pathologized homosexuality and those that viewed it as normal. Importantly, APA's 1973 diagnostic revision was the beginning of the end of an organized medicine's official participation in the social stigmatization of homosexuality. Similar shifts gradually took place in the international mental health communities as well. The second shift, majorly, if we look at it, it came in 1990 when the World Health Organization removed homosexuality per se from its international classification of disease, that is ICD 10. As a consequence, debates about homosexuality gradually shifted away from medicine and psychiatry and into the moral and political realms as religious, governmental, military, media, educational institutions who were deprived of medical or scientific rationalization for discrimination. Uh, so, up until almost, even I would say 25 years or 30 years, homosexuality globally was basically considered as a mental illness. Of course, pre 1973, it was more so actually considered as a mental illness, and as a result, when this changes, basically when these two major changes happened, the cultural attitudes about homosexuality changed in the US and other countries as those who accepted scientific authority on such matters gradually came to accept the normalizing view. Uh, Also, it also these two major changes basically resulted in a, I would say, in a dominoes effect of other things. Very importantly, the repeal of sodomy laws that criminalized homosexuality in many countries, in fact in majority of countries, the enchantment of laws protecting the human rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in society and at workplace. Thirdly, the ability of LGBT personnel to serve openly in military, and marriage equality and civil unions in an ever growing number of countries. Importantly, the facilitation of gay parents adoption rights basically, and also the easing of gay spouses rights of inheritance, and importantly, ever increasing number of religious denominations that would allow openly gay people to serve as clergy. Once again, this is a very, very Western Western worldview of things when we talk about medicine and homosexuality, because of course it all started from there. Uh, uh, Most importantly, in medicine, psychiatry, and other mental health professions, removing the diagnosis from the DSM led to an important shift from asking questions about what causes homosexuality and how we can treat it, uh, to focusing instead on health and mental health needs of LGBT patient populations. This was a very, very, very important shift, because there have been, I would say, horror stories of people being gay and subject to so much of brutality, especially through mental health professionals. This is pre 1973 I'm talking about. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, just a minute. Uh, as I already told about, what basically West was initially kind of going through. Uh, and also here we will be also looking at what was the Indian version of it, because we tend to ape a lot from West, in not only in medicine but in a lot of things, including the popular culture. So uh, the landmark removal of homosexuality as a disorder from DSM-2, that is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, is often seen as a watershed moment for changing medical attitudes. What was once a sin had become a crime before being treated as a disease. And with the removal from an American Psychiatric Association approved manual, seemed to become a normal expression of sexual desire. Predominantly, the text on medicalization focus extensively on North American and European uh, 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 experiences as focal points for both medicalization and demedicalization. In comparison to the studies in the West, the medicalization of homosexuality in geographies such as India are almost non-existent. Although there has been work done, especially by those critiquing the psychology discipline on contemporary medicalizations of homosexuality, the history is often neglected. Uh, Majorly, I would say, because of Indian government's assertion that homosexuality does not exist in India. This is pre 377 I'm talking about. So the Indian scholars, arguing that medicalization could not take root in India due to large levels of religious beliefs also. Furthermore, medicalization literature neglects the influence of impact of British colonialism in India, which is very important, through which homophobic legislation and attitudes were imported and cultivated. So if we look at section 377, which I'm going to come in the next other slides, uh, 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 we know that India did not had any specific law which would actually ban homosexuality before British time. Homosexuality became a psychiatric concern in the 1970s and has been largely unchallenged until very recently. The decriminalization of homosexuality in 2018, we are talking of course about India, by the Indian Supreme Court has allowed for a more public space to combat the negative role psychiatry and medicine has had on Indian LGBTQI people. The use of Freudian understandings of sexuality were also pivotal in shaping treatment for Indian patients. If we look at the Indian Journal of Psychiatry and the Indian Journal of Clinical Psychology, uh, we we have ample uh, examples of what we call as aversive techniques recorded as early as 1962 in the treatment of homosexuality. It was not until 1979 that aversive therapies for homosexuality were written about actually in detail. Interestingly, during this period, there are also uses of aversion therapy to cure other so-called deviations such as transsexuality, transvestism, what we now actually call, well, transgender identities, I would say. So till 70s and even as early as 1982, practitioners were commenting that cultural attitude towards homosexuality were overwhelmingly condemn were very condemnatory, and that the desire for social conformity drove people with same-sex desire to practitioners who could offer relief from their distress. uh, Let me kind of uh, in other psychiatric journals, there are reference to marriage as it is important in Indian culture and society, as well as procreation. The importance of marriage and children cannot be overstated, and especially in the Indian context. Uh, Practitioners from the West were more concerned with the removal of same-sex desire, whereas Indian practitioners were deeply invested in altering desire so that the patients become heterosexually inclined. One has to understand this very, very, very important difference here, that the practitioners in the West were more focused on removal of same-sex desire, whereas here it was more about altering the desire, and hence they would go into a happy heterosexual marriage. And of course, this was also majorly driven due to conform to the societal expectations and the cultural assumptions in many ways. Um, can we go to the slide third? Yeah. Am I clear till here? Are you guys able to are you guys able to connect with what I'm trying to convey?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, because of the virtual medium, uh, the whole beauty of the physical class, where you have a direct contact with the students, basically is lost. But thanks to COVID, we are in a very, very different world now. Anyway, so when we talk about what are the doctors talking, what do doctors think about homosexuality in India? And once again, uh, 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 while I am actually quoting studies, these are smaller studies in bits and parts, pieces, and done in smaller parts of countries with not like really huge sample size per se. But these are also very important, findings which are coming out. So, the Kerala High Court recently directed the Undergraduate Medical Education Board to take an immediate action to upgrade medical textbooks and remove discriminatory and inhuman references to LGBTQI plus community. It is as recent as I think this year only. The order responds to the petition filed by the NGO Disha and Quiridam, who asked how medical textbooks can make such references when the queer community rights are recognized by the Supreme Court of India. Uh, Another example is the Madras High Court issued similar directions to review queer-phobic material in medical textbooks earlier this year. Medical textbooks also refer to anything that is heteronormative, is refer to anything that is not heteronormative to be of unsound mind. Unsound mind is what the word which is written there in the curriculum. The medical curriculum also mentions treatment for homosexuality as an option. Okay, so it refers to procedures such as aversion therapies, convert sensitization, and systematic desensitization. These are all ways suggested in order to change sexual orientation of or identity of any individual. We are actually talking about 2022 when the APA has already removed it from its list of disorders way back in 1972. The textbook mentions that these are not sure short treatments, but even having a chapter for conversion treatment is really bad. Homosexuality is not a disease, and therefore these treatments cannot work. One has to understand that. Uh, Not only homosexuality, but even trans people are not well served by the current medical training either. Medical training at both the undergraduate and specialized level is also lacking in providing help for trans persons. Even the senior most doctors need to be explained the difference between sex and gender, and nobody knows the right terminology. There are also concerns about how other non-hetero identities are addressed in medical training. I'll just give an example of intersex individuals, people who do not belong in the binary of male and female. Indian psychology textbook says they have sex difference disorder. This is the actual word which has been quoted here. The word disorder states that there is a disease that needs to be treated, while actually it is not. So, uh, you know, intersex people should also not be treated without informed consent before the age of 18. But there are doctors who perform procedures on just the parents' orders and just on the parents' orders, and try to fix the gender of sex of the child to male or female in order to avoid stigma. So the current medical curriculum completely lacks training of doctors in how to communicate and treat the queer patients in a respectful manner, which is very, very important. Uh, of course, there is hence that there is a need to be more inclusive education to train doctors to deal with LGBTQI community aligned with their needs. Uh, Interactive case studies on the patients from the LGBT community should be taught in medical schools. It is of utmost importance, and also the need of the day. Let me give you an example of our HIV work which we do here and a lot of other places in the country, because the National AIDS Control Organization has HIV projects across India. Uh, it has it has been successful because of a lot of efforts which have been put to train and sensitize doctors, especially the skin and VD departments and HIV testing centers, the doctors at HIV testing centers, that uh, now we have, I would say, flow of patients, especially from the gay, bisexual, and transgender communities coming in and getting their tests done. But before that, in 2005 or 6, if we talk about, it was really an uphill task, because the doctors at even at that point in time, and of course now also in many other departments for that matter, but especially related to HIV programs, they still thought that homosexuality is a mental health disorder, or it is a disease of some sort. Can we go to the slide number 4, please? So once and for all, uh, this was a position statement from the Indian Psychiatric Association. The Indian Psychiatric Society has in 2018 categorically stated that homosexuality is not a disease and must not be regarded as such. All forms of treatment, therapy, uh, which includes psychotherapies, behavior therapies, hypnotherapies, uh, uh, all the treatments basically to reverse sexual orientation are based on the premise that it is erroneous, that such orientations are diseases. Moreover, there is no scientific evidence at all that attempt to convert a person's orientation succeed in any manner. The Indian Psychiatric Society totally disapproves of any such treatments and urges that such therapies must cease forthwith. So uh, this position statement came in 2018, and of course this also was due to a lot of work at the grassroots level, working with the medical health professionals by the activists throughout years, and that actually resulted in Indian Psychiatric Association putting out a position statement of this kind. Can we go to the next slide, please? So interestingly, so now what do we basically, what do we know about mental health in India, mental health issues, what exactly? So frankly speaking, we do not have enough research. Uh, there is so much there's so much of lack of research, lack of data, but with whatever we have as whatever small researches have been done by individuals and organizations, this is kind of putting it here. uh, a review of research from 2009 to 2019 by Jagruti and Advaita, which was first published in 24th April 2020. Uh, this literature is in and literature in online journal databases was searched in archives of most prominent journals, websites of prominent LGBTQ organizations, and through cross reference of papers. The data, uh, so studies and reviews in the last decade provide some insight into some very important questions basically. So the first one I would say that what what are the key findings from these researches which were conducted about mental health aspects of LGBTQI individuals. So uh, you know and it is also a very well known fact that cisgender men, transgender women, and hijras have been most represented in these researches, while cis lesbian women, bisexual individuals, and gender queer individuals, trans men, and asexual individuals are less represented in these researches. And this is like from the past decade we are talking about. Prevalence rates of mental health concerns among LGBTQA individuals are varied but are typically higher than their population prevalence rates. Lived experiences of queer individuals have been found to be different from those of cis heterosexual individuals, with unique challenges faced by them across the lifespan that are related to their identity formation, intimate partner relationships, disclosure, and social acceptance. Uh, Findings related to resilience, self-esteem, and satisfactions are limited, and society and social attitudes seem to have improved over a time, but continue to be ambivalent. Uh, Let me kind of go to uh, something very, very important, like what data we are missing that needs to be explored further here. Uh, you know, more epidemiological studies with larger and more inclusive populations are recommended from different parts of the country, including more semi-urban and rural areas. More research is needed on the lives of sexual minority, women, transgender, gender non-conforming individuals, intersex, asexual individuals, and their unique challenges which they face, rather than focusing only on experiences of non-heterosexually identifying cis men. So, in short, most of the studies were dominated by gay men. We need to have more research studying variables related to positive psychology rather than those only related to illness. Research needs to be more intersectional and explore the impact of intersecting identities based on gender, sexuality, age, religion, class, caste, and disability. We need more intervention studies outlining specific therapeutic models adapted to the Indian context and designed for the LGBT communities. This is at most important. And we need psychological research to be less heteronormative, with studies on all topics inclusive of experiences of gender and sexual minorities, and not just cis het individuals. So, you know, what we know, basically what has come out very, very clearly is, of course, majority of the communities, uh, uh, in one or the other way, are uh, uh, they're suffering from depression, suicidal ideation, current suicidal risk. There is also generalized anxiety disorder, social phobia, of course, post-traumatic stress disorder. Mood disorders are very, very common. Psychosis, psychotic episodes are very, very much there. And it has also been clearly observed that a lot of community members from the LGBTQI population are into alcohol abuse, alcohol dependence, drug abuse, and tobacco use also. So, this is basically what we, as communities, have been able to kind of pinpoint things that, and these are, as I said, that these are researches done by LGBTQI individuals as well as organizations, and some of them have been also been partnered with other organizations, other agencies also. uh, so this is the, I would say, gist of uh, mental health issues faced by the communities. Can we go to the other slide, please? Very important. So, once again, this is a small study which was done by Sahodaran. Sahodaran is a community-based organization in Tamil Nadu, Chennai to be more specific. In 2018, they partnered with UNESCO, and then they did a research study which clearly stated that harassment among LGBT students start as early in primary schools. Around 60% of the students who identify as LGBT face bullying in middle or high school, whereas 43% of the students reported to be sexually harassed. However, only 18% of the students reported such instances to the authorities, whereas 33% of them dropped out of the schools. Dropping out of the schools by LGBTQI individuals, and more so by the trans students, is very, very, very common. Another study explained that 73% of LGBTQI adolescents experience biased bullying from various reasons beyond their sexual orientation, including body weight, religion, caste, etc. These bullying instances were not limited to schools and colleges but continue to be in their adult life. Very, very important. Uh, there is an organization called Mingle, the Mission for Indian Gay and Lesbian Empowerment, which did a survey way back in 2016 to determine that 20% of Indian employees are uh, discriminated against in the workplace, especially LGBTQI ones. Stigma and exclusion are two critical factors behind this discrimination, which further leads to economic losses. The world view, I would say, would be that the World Bank report in 2014 revealed that India is losing around $31 billion due to these factors. Adolescents who are bullied are more likely to face physical and mental health concerns, including higher levels of anxiety, depression, suicidal tendency, and lower self confidence, self concept, and self esteem. There is no concrete statistical data on depression, anxiety, or suicidal rates of LGBT people in India. I'm repeating this. There is no concrete statistical data on the depression, anxiety, or suicidal rates of LGBT people in India. However, various research papers and reports have been written in this regard. For instance, the suicidal rates among trans people in India, in a smaller sample size, I would say, is around 31%. This was specifically to Bombay. And almost 50% of the trans populations have tried to die by suicide before 20 years of age. Very, very shocking. Similarly, in another study, it was found that people who identify as LGBTQI suffer higher rates of depression. Once again, very, very common. Anxiety and substance abuse. So I have already kind of stressed on how important mental health is for especially for marginalized communities, I would say. Can we go to the other slide, please? Can we go to the next slide? Just a minute. Yeah, thank you. So now we are transporting ourselves from the mental health to I would say more of general health and civil rights of individuals. So, and this is so there are two major, I would say, two major phases of this. One which was pre-HIV, which was majorly looked as a mental health concern or mental health issue, and then with the advent of HIV coming in India, and the first case in 1986, it was only then that the government and other agencies and individuals started to work, I would say, very actively with the gay and bisexual and transgender communities. Activism in the early 90s on LGBT rights came out of the concern around discrimination against those affected by HIV in India. The group that played a pivotal role in this was AIDS Bhedbhav Virodhi Andolan, ABVA, which was formed to fight discrimination against those affected by HIV/AIDS. Their work started as a response to the draconian measures being taken by Government of India at that time against all those groups which were perceived to be quote unquote high risk of contracting HIV/AIDS. This included gay men, commercial sex workers, drug users, and professional blood donors. The group's member included those who were working with people affected by HIV/AIDS, doctors, professional drug users, lawyers, social activists. I'm talking about ABVA, the NGO, the organization. ABVA brought out a series of well-researched reports on discrimination faced by those affected by HIV. In 1991, they released Less Than Gay, the first report on LGBT rights in India, a comprehensive document covering human rights violation faced by LGBT people. It drew examples from other countries to argue for the repeal of IPC Section 377 and ensuring civil rights for LGBT people in India, including the right to marry, adopt, and inherit property. Uh, Importantly, the struggle took a legal turn in 1994, very important, when Kiran Bedi was in charge of Tihar jail. She refused to distribute condoms among the male inmates, arguing it will encourage homosexuality, which is criminal by law. This is Kiran Bedi in 1994. Okay, this motivated ABVA to draft a petition asking for the repeal of Section 377 in the Delhi High Court. The first opposition to Section 377 came from ABVA in 1994. The fact is often ignored, and it is only the 2002 petition of NAS Foundation that is remembered. We have to understand this also. It was around 2007 2008 that Anjali Gopalan, the second petitioner to scrapping of Article 377, had got back from the USA with a program to work with MSM, which is male who have sex with men, was turned away from India's National AIDS Control Organization. A year before High Court judgment in 2008, NACO got a 30 million, NACO is National AIDS Control Organization, got a $30 million grant for MSM intervention from the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. Continuing to the series of the events then which happened in 2019, the Delhi High Court in a remarkable judgment declared the Section 377 of IPC, which criminalizes unnatural sex, disproportionately affects LGBTQI identifying people as being contrary to the fundamental rights guaranteed to every citizen of India, and held it unconstitutional. Afterwards, there have been from 2005 onwards, I would say, there have been a series of HIV awareness and prevention programs which have been started by the likes of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, HIV/AIDS India Alliance. We have National AIDS Control Organizations. So all these organizations then actually actively started working, and this was once again before they had started working actually also before decriminalization, but after Delhi High Court's judgment, it actually came on very strongly on the ground. Let me put it that way. Also, I think I would say the media also was kind of, being sensitized by NACO with various stakeholders. Very importantly, state AIDS control societies, which were the government bodies working in all different states. They made very significant steps in sensitizing police forces and advocates related to gay, bisexual men and transgender issues also. Importantly, the other very landmark thing which actually was done by National AIDS Control Organization is that an affidavit was filed in support of decriminalization of Section 377 in favor of NAS by NACO. The Ministry of Health took a stand quite opposed to the Ministry of Home. The contradiction in the two affidavits went unnoticed till the High Court judge, which is Delhi High Court, pointed it out and asked the government to, quote unquote, speak in one voice. This was in 2008. And then the varying stance of government of India on this matter also, of course, made headlines. Anyways, the point is it was the country's nodal agency on HIV who submitted an official document against Section 377 to decriminalize same-sex relationship. And then 2012 Supreme Court overturned the Delhi High Court's order, and then once again a writ petition was filed in Supreme Court, and in 2008, in 2018, Supreme Court starts hearing on Section 377, and then further it kind of decriminalized it, I would say. Yeah. Can we go to the other section, the other slide, please? Thank you. Here, so National AIDS Control Program and its different phases. This is very, very important especially when we talk about medicalization of homosexuality, because in the NSAP's first phase, which is from 1992 to 1999. In 1992, the government of India launched its first National AIDS Control Program. The program implemented between 92 to 1999 had the objective of slowing down the spread of HIV infections so as to reduce the morbidity, mortality, and impact of AIDS in the country. To strengthen the management capacity, a National AIDS Control Board was constituted and an autonomous National AIDS Control Organization was set up for the project implementation. It was only in NSAP Phase 2, which came in 1999 to 2007, was that there was a shift in the focus from raising awareness in general people to change in behavior through interventions, particularly among high risk groups, quote unquote high risk groups. Also, there was a decentralization of service delivery to states during NSAP 2. It was a 100% centrally sponsored scheme implemented in 32 states and union territories and 3 municipal corporations, namely Ahmedabad, Chennai, Mumbai, through AIDS Control Society. Its main objective at that time was to reduce the spread of HIV infection in India, to strengthen India's capacity to tackle HIV and AIDS on a long-term basis. That was it. So in NSAP 2, it was the state AIDS control societies and National AIDS Control Organization that the first seeds, I would say, of community-based organization and community forming actually started in a more formal way. I think the very first and the senior most organizations in the country, traces their roots in NSAP 2 and NSAP 1, but majorly NSAP 2. NSAP 1, it was only the Humsafar Trust which came in, which is based out of Bombay. But in NSAP 2, the second line of organizations started coming up. And once again, NSAP 3 actually had the third phase of NSAP implemented during 2007 to 2012 was a scientifically well-evolved program grounding on strong structure of policies, programs, schemes, operational guidelines, rules, and norms. Very, very importantly, there were very strong efforts on scaling up prevention efforts among high-risk groups, especially gay and bisexual men and transgender women. Here I have just kind of put NSAP 2 and 3 into, so it was NSAP 2 that the inclusion of MSM groups actually started, and now of course we have NSAP 4 and NSAP 5 also, which is presently running, which are now, I would say, which have actually gone till the level of tehsil, that is taluka level, as well as village levels, in reaching out to the gay, bisexual, and transgender communities. Can we have the this thing, uh, the slide? Yeah, thank you. Uh, Basically, this is in a kind of overview of the AIDS control, a typical targeted intervention project, which has outreach and communication. So these are the programs where communities are engaged as staff members, as outreach workers and peer educators, and then they reach out to other individuals within their own communities with the service of condom and KY jelly, which are lubricants which are distributed to the communities for safer sexual behaviors. Services including STI treatment and HIV treatment is done. Free medication is given throughout. Enabling environment is a very important aspect where police and lawyers are sensitized basically, and community mobilization is also one aspect where a lot of community people are engaged in the project through a lot of events, through a lot of other initiatives, basically awareness initiatives, I would say. Yeah. Can we go to the other slides? I will be a bit quick now so that we have enough time for, I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So this is just a run through of the statistics. And once again, these are the statistics which are from National AIDS Control Organization, purely on the basis of HIV AIDS intervention. So we have, so nationally, the estimated size of men who have sex with men, MSM population, is 357,000. But I still believe that this is very, very under reported estimated size. These are the figures for condom distribution. Very importantly, if we look at the HIV prevalence rate, initially the prevalence rate in the country was much higher, almost 4%. Now it has almost come to 2.69%, due to free availability of antiretroviral therapy, especially for HIV treatment. A lot of people are being treated also for STIs, as well as they are directly linked with the ART centers for their monthly medication, which is provided free of cost to everyone. And also, this is also because of this is also very much because of a lot of sensitization has gone, in, a lot of efforts have gone in sensitizing healthcare providers to be more uh, uh, to be more sensitive towards the LGBTQI population here in this program with MSM and transgender population. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So if we look at the trans population, once again, the estimated size is only 70,000 trans people across India, which once again, I feel that it is very underreported. But once again, uh, uh, looking at looking at the only the HIV being the only focus of the program, that is narrowed down only to 70,000 individuals, and these are the individuals who are directly visible or very open in society. So that is the figure of that. Here also, very importantly, HIV prevalence, if we look at it, is 3.14%. It is in fact second highest presently among all the high risk group. First being the injecting drug users community. Second is the transgender communities, and due to very obvious fact that a lot of stigma and discrimination happens in the in the trans to the trans communities. A lot of trans community members are subject to stigma, discrimination, violence within and outside the community. So a lot of factors kind of go into that also. Can we go to the other slide, please? Yes, very importantly, I'm sure a lot of people would have questions on what is exactly MSM. So, MSM is an umbrella term basically, which is used for men who have sex with men. Uh, uh, it can be sexual, it could be romantic, or both. And MSM, one has to understand this is a more medicalized term. A lot of people uh, uh, on the ground do not yet identify themselves as being homosexual, though they practice homosexuality. A lot of people still say that we do not identify ourselves as being gay or bisexual uh, due to various socio reasons, I would say, also economic reasons, but yes, a lot of social reasons are there, majorly because of stigma attached with homosexuality. Even though the law now is open. Uh, this may be irrespective of how this may identify, as I've already said about this. There are different subcategories, which is koti, panti, gay, bisexual, homosexual, or no specific terms. Some see themselves simply as men, or even straight guys, as I've already mentioned, that they just, a lot of people just identify themselves as only men, but they would, though they behaviorally or their sexual behavior would be homosexual, but they would not still want to identify themselves as one. And MSM as a word has come basically from the HIV AIDS intervention perspective. Okay. Uh, can we go to the next one? Yeah. MSM exists across socio groups. I've already said about that: age, education, marital status, class, caste, race, faith, location, occupation. There are MSM everywhere. Okay. WHO, and I've already talked about this. WHO and international mental health bodies no longer list homosexuality as a mental disorder. Uh, uh, I would like to update this. They are not here. I have put this section 377. Uh, though homosexuality is now not criminalized in India, but one has to understand that the legacy of 377 continues for a lot of people, emotionally, socially. For example, a person like me, I identify myself as a trans person. I majority of my life, my majority of my youth passed when Section 377 was still there. Though now it is decriminalized, I still carry that legacy of fear. I still carry that legacy of shame. I still carry the legacy of guilt, because it was always said that it is illegal, it is immoral. So a lot of MSM still feel that legacy, a very heavy legacy of 377, which is now no more criminal. Though, okay, social legal stigma tends to economic inclusion and leads many MSM to engage into exploitative sex work. A lot of MSM also happens to be in sex work. Can we go to the other slide? Yeah. So once again, here, as I said, that the only data we have is of LGBT communities, otherwise, and specifically for MSM and transgender and bisexual male, is only First is only of HIV. The other one is only very small part of it is for mental health studies which have been done. So here it is basically unprotected penetrative sex with multiple partners, unprotected sex under the influence of drugs, alcohol. Uh, as I've already reiterated that a lot of community members, due to various reasons which are now very out and open otherwise, are happen to be in the substance use communities also. HIV risk increases also for sexual partners of MSM, because in a country like India, majority of men who have sex with men are married, are heterosexually married to women. So a lot of MSM carry that risk of infection from their male partners to their wives or their female partners also. Chances of vertical transmission of HIV increases, as I've already talked about this. Other health concerns that accompany HIV risk is STIs, TB, HBV, HCV, mental health, major ones, and rectal injuries. This can be due to rape, this can be due to forced sex, or also sex due to under the influence of alcohol or any other substance use. Can we go to the vulnerability factor? Thank you. So, as I said, that quite a good population of MSM are also into sex work. There is unwell. So vulnerability lies in reasons for unprotected sex work, unwillingness on part of partners for protected sex, fear of violence, internal violence within the community, especially within the intimate partner violence, is very common, commonly found here. Trust in specific partners. uh, Trust in specific partners means that is, if I have only one partner, then I would have that trust, but maybe that one partner would have relationship outside without me being knowing that. So that could also be a reason for that. uh, that is a vulnerability issue. uh, there is rivalry within sex work, need to finance substance use, uh, drugs, alcohol. Vulnerability is caused due to social legal stigma, which are social attitudes basically. As I said, the criminalization has happened, but the legacy carries on. The legacy carries on uh, uh, for for quite a good number of MSM, especially from a specific generation where 377 was still very much there in their growing up years. So that is also very much that, and that also impacts on health service access, because a lot of people do not access service because they are still not sure that how the doctors or the paramedical staff would treat them once they know about their orientation. Uh, can we go to the next slide, please? Uh, so here also, what we talk, so transgender woman is an umbrella term. Basically, biological males who identify themselves as women, both men and women, or something beyond gender binary. Actually, transgender issue is a different, I would say, different topic altogether, but I've tried to kind of uh, compress it here in a smaller way. But it is a different topic altogether. It needs a different uh, session, I would say. So men who would not actually undergo sex change as a means of feminization are called transsexual. Transsexual women. So men who want to go undergo sexual change, and sex change operations basically are trans women. Hijra is a cultural professional identity. Many hijras identify as TGs. Some hijras are also transsexual. So, Hijra identity is specific to the South Asian cultures of Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Hijra culture is not found in other countries except these South Asian countries. So, and Hijra culture is once again as old as Indian culture itself. Okay, uh, and nowadays a lot of hijra communities are undergoing sex change operations also, but not all. Quite a few do not undergo the sex change operation, but majority of them are. The present trend is that majority of hijra population are also undergoing the uh, operations, the sex change operations. Some men who cross dress also may be TGs. So there are transvestites. This is another identity. They uh, they may be transgenders, but a lot of transvestites are actually heterosexual males. So there is a very thin line where there is a difference between being a transvestite and a transgender and a transsexual for that matter. So it is a myth that all TG women are hermaphrodite. Because it is a biological condition, it is an intersex condition actually. So there are quite a few myths around that all the hijras are hermaphrodite. No, it is not like that. Majority of hijras are either castrated or emasculated through medically approved or other practices. Can we go to the other slide, please? No, we have to go to the previous slide, please. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. So here also TG women exist across social groups. They are everywhere. We just have to look around. Age, marital status, education, class, caste, race, faith, location, occupation. They're everywhere. I identify myself as a trans person. I identify myself as a trans woman myself. According to WHO and international mental health bodies, being TG does not mean having any kind of mental disorder. Supreme Court of India, Nalsa judgment, we all know about it, in 2014, provided legal recognition to TG identities and upheld their citizenship rights. This you will learn more into the legal section of your course. So I'm not touching much into this. Uh, Once again, here I've kept it here because, like, of course, 377 is no more, but once again, a lot of TGs, at least from my generation and my, you know, uh, I would say my generation, they still carry on the legacy of 377, uh, you know, uh, mentally and socially. So there is of course a lot of social legal stigma leads to economic exclusion and leads to many teachers women who engage in exploitative sex work because there are no jobs, there are no reservations. It is only now that a lot of multinational companies, even the government has now come up with the TG bill. There are now avenues of employment and other livelihood opportunities for TG women. But otherwise, for centuries, TG women have only been into the business either of sex work or begging. But now the things are opening up, but it will take a few more years, a couple of more decades for TG women to actually, kind of, I would say, to come into the mainstream. Though a lot of it is already happening, a lot of positive changes are happening. But yes, in a country like India, we still have miles to go before we, mainstream issues of TGs. Can we go to the next slide? I suppose this is the last one. Yeah. So here also it is quite similar to the MSM group, the unprotected penetrative sex, anal, oral, vaginal, in case of transsexual women who have had vaginoplasty with multiple partners, because as I've said that a lot of TG women are also actively into sex work profession uh, due to no options left with them. Unprotected sex under the influence of drugs and alcohol, because they have to uh, attend so many clients in a day. The only refuge is alcohol and drugs, under whose influence they can actually attend so many clients. Uh, 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 they can entertain so many clients, I would say. So of course, sharing of hormone injecting equipment also, because majority of the TGs are also in the process or undergoing in the process of sex reassessment surgeries. So uh, uh, they are also taking hormones, and it is also common practice, if the TGs are living together, they would share the needles, and sharing of hormones through injecting equipments is very common. So that is also one risk. Sexual partners is once again the risk, because of multiple partners of them of theirs. Chances of vertical transmission of HIV increases where a TG person has female sexual marital partners. Uh, there are quite a few transgender people who also have female partners. There are transgender people who are married heterosexually. In these cases, there would be chances of vertical HIV transmission if a trans person is heterosexually married or having any sexual contact with women. There are less people like that, but there are people who are transgender and who are married due to societal pressure, or maybe they have opted for married by their own choices. Other health concerns that accompany HIV risk are, of course, STI, sexually transmitted infections, tuberculosis, TB, HCV, mental illness, rectal injuries. Sex change through a non-approved method can lead to injuries, bleeding, increased HIV exposures, and fatalities. Very, very important point, the last one. A lot of TGs, because the lived experiences of working with trans women and Hijra populations, I can actually say that majority of them, they go through the sex reassessment surgeries through through not quacks, but through the doctors, or through the procedures which are very cheap economically, so as to save money. The doctors also have to save money, and that is why there have been cases of ruptures, injuries, bleeding, and even deaths, especially when the surgeries or the castration is done in uh, very unhygienic or not very medically approved settings, I would say. Yeah. So these are the risks of these are the HIV factors risk of transgender women. Can we go to the other next? Yeah, thank you. So I think I think the vulnerability factor is almost as I think, yeah, there's this vulnerability factors lies in the unprotected sex, unwillingness of partners to protect for protected sex. Once again, there is a lot of violence also, interpartner, inter uh, interpersonal relationships, I would say. There's also a lot of sex, and also uh, because transgender women in sex work, uh, uh, they they also face violence from police, from the local power structures, local gundas. So that is also one issue with that. That is uh, that also affects both physical and mental health in a very different way. There is also rivalry within other groups and within the communities also, especially for sex work. And a lot of people risk, or uh, they would risk their lives and their bodies to earn money just to finance the feminization procedures. Substance use is also one major thing. Uh, why there is so much of vulnerability, especially uh, within the uh, within the trans communities. So I'll give you a small example of vulnerability. If there is a sex worker, who a transgender sex worker, uh, uh, negotiating with her client, and if the client comes and says that, okay, fine, I will give you 200 or 500 rupees more, but let's not use condoms. If she is in dire need of that money due to her poverty, or maybe feminization procedure she wants to do, or any, or even if she is under the uh, influence of substance abuse, substance use, she would happily go in without knowing uh, 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 the the aftermaths of it, because it can lead to HIV infection, it can lead to STI infection, and so on. So this is just one of the vulnerability point I discussed, but I would be more than happy to take so many. I would more than happy to take questions from you, because this has been really a monologue now. So thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Ishwari Pense, she has raised hand. Please unmute yourself and ask question, Ishwari.
Yes, so actually, you have highlighted about the violence amongst the partners who are homosexual or transgenders. So, whenever we see the law in relation to personal relationships and when they are violent, we see that it is always a very male-female idea in which the laws have been created. Do you think that even though certain provisions under the law can be read as gender neutral in certain senses, but can we, like, do the people still have that feeling that yes, are there can be proper enforcement or flaw, or these laws are enough at the
So
present
look,
moment?
one has to understand to let's start from the very basics of it. uh 377 has been, I would say, has been a certain section of 377 has been read down. Homosexuality has been decriminalized. Okay. So now, uh so two three things come in play here. First is that uh, uh, the unions are not legalized. So there is, we do not have any law which protects us, to start with first. As even if there is a couple, uh, uh, gay marriage in India is still not legal. If we look at from a union point of view, as a male and a male, as a female and a female, or a trans and a male, or whatever it is. Okay, so that is one. Second part, that even if it is not, even if I go to the court, and then I try to kind of uh, I try to make it functional for me. Uh, is that once again, I think gender neutral laws is the only, I think neutrality is the only way to look at it. But once again, here also, uh, we have to understand that uh, uh, the homosexual world learns or is influenced so much by the heterosexual world. Uh, so all the laws or any customs or any social this thing would be once again very male dominated here. Okay, so if there are two males, the one who is more dominant, not in the role play of it, but physically who is very dominant and all, he would generally go and kind of I would say influence. Or I would say dominate the violence factor of it. Uh, Unfortunately, what is also happening that these kind of cases seldomly goes to the law enforcement agencies, until and unless if there are some serious cases like where transgenders have been there has been cases where transgenders have been burnt alive, for example in Tamil Nadu, by the policemen. They were harassed in the jail. uh, uh, and then there was this other case in Hyderabad, I suppose, where the trans person was killed. So, in extreme cases, yes, there have been protections which were been kind of given, but otherwise within the within the partnership, the violence which happens within uh, uh, the uh, the ambient of a relationship seldomly reaches the court. It is only some uh, serious cases like some serious injuries or even murders which have only kind of gone there, and thankfully the justice have been served, but not in each and every cases. I hope I'm answering you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sylvester, there is another question from Pranjal, our second year BLLB law student. She has asked, when we talk about violence, whether it is male or LGBTQIA plus community, there is no provision. As in domestic violence 498A, we just consider women's.
Mm.
What steps must be taken or needed by judiciary or lawmakers?
uh, I think these are very, I would say, very importantly, uh, to start with, for trans communities, I would say. uh, uh, as for women, there have been specific laws which are protecting women from violence. The same actually should be there also for the trans communities. Importantly, for the if we talk about gay men, gay and bisexual men, or LGBTQI for that, lesbian, lesbian women and gay men, I would stress to the point of the previous this thing. I've already said about that, gender neutral laws in terms, especially in terms of harassment, in terms of violence, needs to be kind of put out there very very openly, very explicitly. The only problem here is that 377 being homosexuality being decriminalized, people that a lot of community members feel that, okay, oh fine, we have got our rights and all, but no, actually we have we have still a long way to go, especially when we talk about non-discriminatory rights, when we talk about rights which would cover domestic violence, sexual violence for that matter. We are not even talking about it. So I think their need, it's the need of the hour to start looking at that, at those aspects very seriously, and I would say in a very interventional approach. Yeah. The other part, especially for trans women, because of the trans bill, what has happened that there is a certain amount of uh, 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 protection. But once again, if you look very closely, there also, if the amount, the uh, I think uh, the offense, especially when the punishable offense is not more than 2 years or 3 years, which they have kind of put, especially in case of sexually harassing a trans woman or a trans person, which is, once again, I feel it is very discriminatory, because it is not at par with the present laws which are governing women. I would say that let it be at par with what with the laws which are governing the woman. Yeah.
Rajiv, you can ask your question.
All right. So my question is, so like from the history that you've traced of the medicalization and pathologization of different identities, one thing that was very visible is that most of these decisions has been taken by cishet people, and even today, like the Madras High Court judgment came from a cishet man. And while in other areas like politics, reservation, or like even for media and Bollywood, we do see some trans representation. But in terms of like how medical discourse has been there, how AIDS discourse has been there, there are only few voices. For instance, like I can only remember Dr. Aksa Sheikh as one of the person who is like kind of having these conversations. So why do you think that the presence of community leaders has been so minimal, especially if their contribution towards these, like for the manual and everything, could have brought these changes so much early? So why is there so much disparity in this medical domain versus other domains?
So let me also trace the history now. My identity only became legal in 2018. Okay. Next year, we will be celebrating 75 years of Indian independence. Okay. The trans movement is the youngest civil society movement in the country. Okay. So you look at the timelines itself, where 75 years and where 2018, just a couple of years. Okay. So for a large part of post independence India, uh, our issues were never raised, also because uh, of of a lot of homophobia. I'm sure, I can actually drop some very famous names in different industries across, I would say. Okay. But then if they chose to remain silent, because, as I said, I've already mentioned that the legacy of 377 continues. It really continues. It is not that ke women's right movement एक बार आ गया, डाउरी का आ गया तो डाउरी लेना सब बंद कर देंगे कल से. कहाँ बंद की है? We have extravagant marriages, yeah. Come on, we have destination weddings now. Okay, only the route has changed. So one has to also understand that we will also go through the similar grind. There are filmmakers, there are industrialists, there are scientists, there are politicians, you name it, and we have it. But uh, who would want to come out very openly and talk about it? Because there is also not only social discrimination, but it's also so much uh, 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 you know it is so much with self also. If I come out, and how would I be perceived and all, it takes so much of guts for anyone to come out. So I think, as far as I remember, it took just one girl to go into the school almost 150 years back in India. It took 150 years. We have so many women here, not only in this class, across, doing so many fantabulous things. So it takes time. But what I feel that maybe in this short span, and thanks also due to social media, I would say the information is spreading really, really fast. But once again, uh, 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 if we talk, if we say that okay, fine, that that now transgenders have got rights, and homosexuality has just been decriminalized. Now you can come out very openly and talk about it. No, it is not very very easy. It's not very easy for a lot of people. So I think it will take its own time. But as I said, I'm also very hopeful. I was just talking to someone in the bureaucracy, and almost a similar kind of question which was asked. And I said that, sir, this is 75 years of bureaucracy, which governed the length and breadth of this country, and uh, and it is not even 5 years of legalization. So I hope I'm answering you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, like as you said, like even I think like if my identity was like criminalized before Section 377, that was just few years ago. And I think I just like, so this is the 10th session of this course, and I just kind of like feel, uh, yes. So I'll just quickly say that I just feel little bit disappointed that so much that I am learning about my own identity is not from people of the community but from cishet people. So that was the place the question came from. But I think yeah, I'm definitely hopeful about it, like the way we are going forward. So definitely there's hope for the future.
But also, okay, so let me also answer you in a different way. That it is organizations like the one presently who's hosting us. Okay, I think it is it is a partnership between communities and the heterosexual community, I would say. Okay, who are creating this kind of safer spaces. So once again, the more it goes to a larger audience, and once again we have to understand. I always and once again it is more on a lighter note. I always say, be good to straight people, because it takes two of them to make one of you. Yeah. Thank you.
There is one another question. Sylvie, you were one of the first few to come out as transgendered. I can imagine that this must have been difficult. How did you cope with negative reactions of people around you? What helped you become resilient?
uh, Actually, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people like me, uh, it starts very very early in the childhood. uh, uh, it is the people, especially well, I don't have any siblings, but well, it starts with siblings and your very close friends who, uh, I would say, point out that, hey, you are different. You don't talk like boys, or you don't behave like boys, or you don't follow some specific rules and patterns. So for a long time, I would say it was, uh, I was expecting that since I'm different, I was always pointed out that, well, you're different, and time and again it was always told to me. uh, there was anger, there was a lot of anguish also, but there was not a single, um, uh, uh, s- you know there was not a single doubt or confusion about my own self. Thankfully, due to a lot of reading which I used to do at that point in time, when I was coming to terms with my own self. So uh, I would say, uh, I think the best is education. uh, uh, the I cannot uh, stress much on education, here, because education to one's own self and also to the people. Had my teachers been educated, uh, if homosexuality or LGBTQI topics were part of their curriculum, where they studied, I would have not been harshly judged, I would say. Uh, so for me, as for a lot of other people, it was very difficult. It was very difficult, but thankfully I was very very strong, very sure of what I was. And once again, as stressing the point of education, I educated myself by reading so much that I could actually assert my rights. But it is not easy for a lot of people, a lot of people, especially for trans people belonging to trans communities, who who do not exhibit the gender uh, uh, characteristics, roles, gender expressions, I would say, as it as in a typically binary way. So I think a lot of struggle, but at the end of the day, I would say, uh, uh, I fought back. I fought back with conviction, and जैसे हर हिंदी फिल्म में होता है ना कि एंड अच्छा ही होगा, आता है, it comes good, generally, because there is a level which, when and people will talk to you about you, they will gossip about you, they'll talk upfront on your face, but then uh, once they realize that, you know this one is really stubborn, and he really, you know the person is really strong, they would generally then start minding their own businesses. You have to give it back to society. That's what I've learned.
I
That's
would
it.
say immunity. Your immunity was very, very strong.
Yep. And also the fighting spirit. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, immunity,
absolutely.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. There is another question. Coming out confidentially is a privilege for some, while for others it is not. How can we help people from the unorganized and economically marginalized sector to come out of their closet? This comes from one of my observations. I am currently working on a research paper about uniform civil code. So I had asked in my survey the gender of participants. Almost all the genders LGBTQIA plus were specified, but to my surprise, out of 200 responses, I didn't receive a single response from LGBT plus.
Okay. Once again, it's a very subjective question, but yes, let us, I would say, rather explore this. So, uh, is coming out really, really important to start with? Not actually. Okay, if it is absolutely on an individual's choice whether to come out or not to come out. Also, it is an individual's choice to identify himself or herself as being LGBTQI or not, or cisgender, or whatever gender they would want to kind of the preferred this thing is. Having said so, what also happens, and once again this is with experience, is that a lot of people from the unorganized sector, they are not aware about about themselves. So I'll give you an example directly about the HIV programs which we do. Our HIV programs are directed towards, as a lot of government programs are directed towards, is more pro poor and pro development programs. So here we interact with a lot of community members who practice same sex behavior, but at the end of the day they do not identify themselves as being gay or bisexual, uh, uh, with an exception of transgender people, because trans umbrella is a different thing altogether. But when we talk about gay and bisexual men, for that matter, they would not even give themselves a name like that, but they are always doing or they are in the they are they're practicing, I would say, they are practicing uh, sexualities, I would say. Their sexual behavior, they're practicing it. But so what happens here is that first is that they either they are not aware of it. Even if they're aware, they would not want to identify, because the moment the labeling is done, because labels also have their own set of stigmas and their own set of boxes which are created. Okay, so not all people are very comfortable being into those boxes. In our programs, where we closely worked with MSM communities, as I said, that quite a few of them are from lower socio-economic background. And when we say that, okay, do you identify yourself as being gay or MSM or so, in fact, there are a lot of people who identify themselves in the local terminologies. Like, for example, Koti is one terminology. So now Koti is someone who is uh, 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 someone who is a passive sexual partner under the MSM category. Okay, so there are specific words like Koti. There are specific words like DD, that is double decker. So these are the words they do, which are locally coined out. For example, Maharashtra has its own words. Gujarat would have its own words. Tamil Nadu will have its own words. The most common word is Koti. So when I say that my identity is Koti, Koti means what? So Koti is someone who is a receptive partner in the sexual act. Okay, but once again, it does not fall under LG in your standard scholarly, elite, English educated classification of LGBTQI. This is more rooted. Since you talked about the people from lower socioeconomic background, a lot of people who are laborers, daily wage laborers, or doing some smaller things, we reach out to a lot of Koti populations. We reach out to a lot of DD populations. They would not identify themselves as being, oh no, I'm not LGBTQ, because once again, for them, the perception about LGBTQI, once again, is very class oriented. It is very English speaking, upper class, upper middle class, or middle class, who is well versed with English, digital knowledge, and stuff like that. Are you getting it? What I'm trying to say? Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Saloni. Am I answering your question, or do you have any other questions related to this? You may please ask. What do you mean by? Okay, so once again, thank you, Saloni. So someone asked that what exactly is the DD. So once again, here this is uh, it is once again a very colloquial identity. DD is uh, uh, the full form is double decker, the double decker buses which we have. And once again, this comes from more of a lower socioeconomic background cultures, I would say, this words. So DD is the double decker. So someone who is active as well as passive the in the sexual act. And I'm going deeply into this because of our HIV programs, because we actually count each and every condom which is given to people. So hence we ask that, for example, if someone is DD, we would give them certain amounts of condoms because of the um, the number of penetrations. Sorry, I'm getting in too much deep into programs, but yeah, if I'm answering your question about DD, I hope I'm answering it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sylvester, for answering that. Do we have any more questions? That's all I could see on the chat box. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think there's someone.
Yes, Dhanashri ma'am, you would like to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Sylvia, I had a question. I've been attending the session, but I'm having a hard time understanding going beyond the binary. So can you just give an example and explain like how do we, I mean, I know male, female, so fine, but going beyond the binary, what does it exactly mean?
So once again, I'm sure you would have this. I'm sure you would have a session on identities and identity politics part of it. Uh, but when we talk about going beyond binaries, let me try to explain you with a more common example. Which place of India you are from?
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. Have you heard about Joktis?
Yes, there was a movie actually called Zomua, so I think it's based on that.
Yes. Thank you for that. So Jogwas basically Joktis. So Jokti is, and I'm trying to be as rooted as possible, and then maybe we can go with the other examples. So the concept of Jogti is basically the daughters and the sons and the daughters of Yalamma, that is Renuka Devi, the goddess of sex workers, the goddess of Devadasis, as well as the male Devadasis, which are Joktis. So now Joktis are males, okay, who dress up, who not all, some of them, or I would say, yeah, some of them, and I think a majority of them would have a very unisexual dressing. So they dress up as women, okay, doing all the shringars and all, and then they would go and ask for alms in the rural Maharashtra, and they would perform the pilgrimage and all. So Joktis, when we talk about them now, Joktis are males who are dressing up either as in the Nawari style of saris, or the typical saris and all the shringar, all the shringar which they have, and then they go as females and ask for money and everything. Okay, what happens here is that okay, so now this is okay, that being a male and a female, now you're being a male and then you're dressing up as being a as female, and then you know uh, which is doing something which is quite similar to someone in the hijra culture or a trans culture. But one has to also understand that quite a few joktis, in fact, jogappas, for example, they are married also. They are married to women. So, in a typical this thing, Jogappa culture, if we look at it, what happens is that uh, uh, their wives actually would uh, they would dress them up. पूरा श्रृंगार जो होता है वो उनकी बीवी उनके लिए करती है. They dress up their husbands to be joktis, jogappas, and then it is, and they also have children, they are married. So now once again, going beyond the binary is being a male. When you are born biologically as a male, uh, uh, your gender expression are of female, but heterosexually you're married heterosexually, okay, and then your the wife itself is dressing someone, the husband, to be what she has to be, okay. So this is the closest example I can give you of someone who is jokti, or someone who is going beyond binaries. But here also, so this is just one of the examples. Now when we talk about going beyond non-binary people who would identify themselves as not being a female, there are also people who do not identify themselves as not being a female nor being a male, or a mix of both also. Okay, there are people who would say that no, I do not feel like either being male or being female. I feel somewhere of a mix of it, or even beyond being male or a female. Okay, so any identities which would go beyond the binaries of being male or a female, starting from Jyotis, Jogappas, Hijras, transgender, transsexual, and it's endless. So, uh, you know, it's a spectrum, as I said. I hope I'm answering you.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Sylvester, for answering that. I think there are no more questions on the chat box. Pranjal, can you unmute yourself? Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am.
Sylvester, now I hand over to Pranjal, one of our participants from the certificate course, to give the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Pranjal.
On behalf of Marathwada Mitra Mandal Shankarrao Chavan Law College, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Selvi Merchant who spared time from their busy schedule to grace today's session. They have mentioned how homosexuality was considered as how homosexuality is considered as the mental illness in 1973 and 2018 Indian Psychiatric Society recognizes homosexuality as a normal variant in human beings. In Western countries, it was about removal of same-sex desire, and in India, it was about altering the desire. And we learned about the current scenario of mental health of LGBTQ plus community, as there is no statistical data present on depression, suicide. We also learned how we need more research on positive psychology and so on. I thank the speaker to enlighten us on medicalization of homosexuality and grateful to everyone for their peaceful cooperation. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so much for having me here, uh, especially Dr. Naidu, and everyone in the institution. I really thank you for uh, giving me time and uh, listening to me. Thank you so much, and I'm hopeful of more similar interactions in the near future, and I'm sure our paths will cross in the future as well.
Definitely, Sylvester, and we are looking forward to have you in campus because, as you said, and we teachers are also missing the physical interaction and participative sessions. So we are looking forward to have you in the campus, and I think students will be much more. They will understand, and they will be more benefited from the session and what all topic and the content that you bring. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.